Go.
All right, welcome back to another week of PGA Speculator. This week we're covering the Honda Classic. So for programming for today, we're going to cover the tournament. We're going to go to a topic discussion on why golf is interesting to bet on, like in terms of the modeling perspective, and also about like how the sport is structured. That makes it statistically interesting. And then we're going to round it out with some betting recommendations as usual. How does that sound, Daniel?
Yeah,
Let's go to
sounds
the
good.
slides.
Let's do it. Let's get to the slides. Go ahead.
All right. Um, we can go to present mode. Yeah. So about the course, quickly about Honda Classic. The prize pool is up from 7 million last year to 8 million. It's playing out in the champion course at Palm Beach Gardens, South Florida. It's a par 70, 7,140 yards. It's a pretty difficult course. Many holes above, played above par. Um, Defending champion is Matt Jones. He went 12 under par last year. The average scores for many holes, as we said, it's above par, and there are only two par fives. 144 players are playing, and what is very interesting is that the top 10 players are not playing, which makes it very interesting and harder to predict. Sungjae Im is one of the better ball strikers. Strokes gained tee to green for him is 1.5, much better than his competition. That's why the market is favoring him, and he's actually significantly better in terms of market predicted odds than the other people playing. Strokes gained putting is 0.28. So yeah, that's the basics. We're gonna round it out with some betting recommendation at the end of the programming. So before we go to that, we want to kind of talk about why we decided to bet on golf and why we decided to do these simulations in golf. Daniel, you want to
Yeah,
start it
yeah. So
out?
I think that the right way to think about it is it's quite similar to baseball in that the outcome of the game is the result of or made up of many discrete events. And you can think of baseball as a sport where there's a pitch after pitch after pitch, and the game is really just a series of pitches. And similarly, golf is made up of a series of discrete golf shots or discrete holes played. And so that sort of lends itself to being modeled with the computer, where you can model a very small atomic unit, if you will, and then just recreate those to simulate the playing of 72 holes and the 144 players. You add some variance in at various places, to account for a luck. And then simulate it, hundreds of thousands or millions of times, and you can basically get the probabilities of someone winning or beating another player or in the top 20. And if you compare that to something like soccer, which is a very fluid game, you don't really have a set of discrete events. It's very hard to model something like soccer. So which is a reason we don't do it, because that's a good market to look at, right? It's a big market, it's deep, people like to bet on it. But golf is closer to baseball, and if you look at the history of baseball and statistics, there's movies made about the book Moneyball, and if anyone's read that book, as I said before, it's easy to model these things and wrap statistics around them. So it's a good sport to bet on. There's a lot of data. It's hard to get, and you need to clean it. But we can run machine learning models over that data at a pretty granular level, and use that as inputs into the simulations. And then as the last point here says, you can run a single simulation of everyone playing the tournament, and you can get then predictions or probabilities of many different types of events coming out. So we can bet on whether Dustin Johnson is going to beat John Rahm. We can bet on who's going to be the best player in round two. We could bet on what the average score was on the 17th hole on day 4 if we wanted to. And so building a good model enables you to bet on various or understand the probabilities of of many, many different outcomes. And golf has that because there's a lot of players. You think of all the combinations of competitions, one versus the other, or the best Australian player, or the best left-handed player, or whatever. There's just a lot of different permutations and combinations there. So that's why.
Yeah. To supplement, I think what we are saying here is we kind of just predict one outcome and the details of that outcome. And then what it turns out to be is that the betting market is actually have derivative bets on like different, like focuses on different parts of that outcome, as opposed to like in soccer, like there are other discrete events that people can bet on, but those things are often like have nothing to do with the actual outcome. So like you can bet on like who's going to get disqualified. You can bet on like who is going to have the most penalty and things like that. But those things like don't actually derive from the outcome of the game, which is just like who wins and who loses.
Yeah, no, that's right, Mike. That's a good way to think of it.
Yeah. Yeah, but like to be honest, this is just because we think we can do it, and it's like one of the easier things to model. Like like we might be able to branch out to like harder things, but I think like golf is like a good starting point.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. If you think of other sports that could be modelable, I mean, obviously baseball, like we said, is one. Football would be hard to model. American football is, it'd be hard to model the discrete plays from one play to the next. Tennis is probably doable, but for the time being, we'll focus on golf.
Yeah, and another way of saying this is like those sports are more chaotic, and these like golf events are more structured.
Yeah, I think that's right. Anyway, should we move on to some interesting bets this week?
Yeah. I think that's what the audiences are looking for.
Yeah, so Keith Mitchell to win is Keith Mitchell is hitting the ball pretty well. His strokes gained tee to green is moving the right direction. In our simulations, we have him at $17, and at least on Betfair, where we put most of our bets on, he's priced at 40. At some of the sportsbook, he'll be a bit shorter than that, might be like 30 or something, but it's a good bet. And again, Mitchell for a top 10, we have him price of what he should be priced at about $3, and Betfair has him at $5. So Keith Mitchell is our sort of standout guy this week. Billy Horschel is one of the worst bets we see. He's priced at $23 on Betfair and shorter on other books, and we have him at $36. So there's one to avoid. I think the interesting one to talk about is actually Sung Jae Im. Now, on Betfair, he's around $15. Some of the books he's a little bit shorter than that. And if you look at his statistics this year, his strokes gained tee to green is about a 1.5, and his putting is about 0.28, I think that you said, Mike. And when we take indicators for performance in our model, we rely heavily on statistics from the PGA Tour, both right now, his most recent statistics this year, last season, etc. And what's interesting is this season he's at 1.5, but a lot of that is made up from his short game. And anyone who looks at the stats a lot will know that the short game stats have a lot of variance in them. So, one person might be 1 week, 0.5 strokes gained on their short game, and the next week 0.5 lost. Whereas the tee shots tend to be highly consistent, or rather the most consistent of the different sections of the game. Putting is the least consistent, but short game is the second least consistent. So Sungjae's at 1.5 strokes gained this season, but a good chunk of that is from a movement in his short game. And so we don't really think that that's necessarily sustainable. So if we did think it was sustainable and he had really moved into a point where he is gaining 1.5 strokes per round, truly doing that, then he should be priced at around $8. So if you think that his current stats are representative of the truth rather than noise in the data, then he should be about $8. We think it's mostly noise, and that really he should be closer to sort of a 1 or a 1.1 strokes gained tee to green guy. And at that point, he's out to about $15. Now that's via our simulations, and that agrees closely with what the market is saying. So I'd suggest that people who are doing close analysis are probably thinking that Sung Jae's short game movement is noise, and it's not something you can rely upon. But I guess we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how he goes this week and how he hits the ball and what his strokes gained tee to green is, and it'll be interesting to see this season as things play out whether that does show to be noise or he's able to keep up the good ball striking tee to green.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And to the lesser well-versed like part of the audience, I think what we're saying here is that like these are good bets compared to markets. It's not like we're saying Keith Mitchell is likely to win the whole thing. We just think that compared to what the Betfair and other bookmakers are offering, they have the biggest margin for us to potentially win money if we were to make a bet there.
That's right, Mike. I mean, we're saying $17 as Keith Mitchell, right? So it's sort of like, it's sort of 6%. We're saying he's got a 6% chance, but you're getting paid as though he only has a 2.5% chance. But keep in mind, if you go and make this bet on Keith Mitchell, we think you're going to lose your money 94% of the time. So it's certainly not a sure thing. But if you're going to get paid 40x your money, if you win 6% of the time, you in the long run you make a lot of money. A similar story for the top 10 bet is that we think he should be paying $3. That means that 2/3 of the time we think he won't finish in the top 10. So you're most likely to lose your money. The nice thing is the 1/3 of the time that we think you will get paid, you get paid $5. So that's a nice outcome. But look, all our bets on golf, almost all of them, except for the heads up bets, you're more likely to lose your money than win. It's just that when you win, you get paid, fairly handsomely.
Yeah. And when we pick these bets, like whether good or bad, like the reason why we pick them is because when we run our simulation, the odds that our model predicts is different and very different from the odds that are implied by the market. That's why we think they're interesting, whether it's interesting in a good way or in a bad way. But even for a bad like prediction here, what we're saying is that it's bad to bet on it. But if you're actually on Betfair on one of these platforms that you can lay, you can actually go and lay that bet, and we think that would be a good lay.
That's exactly right, Mike. Yep. I hadn't even discussed that, but you're right. If you're a user of Betfair, where the prices tend to be better than the other books, it's a bit more complicated on Betfair because you go and you've got to figure out different bets, and you're not betting against the book, and the prices move around a lot. But like you said, you can lay a bet. And so if you go and lay right now on Billy Horschel on Betfair, it's a great idea. The only downside is when you lose, you got to pay up 23x times the amount that you took for taking that bet. But you get to play bookie on Betfair, so that's a fun game if you've got the stomach for it.
Yeah. So I think that's about it for wrapping up. As usual, guys, don't bet more than what you can afford to lose, especially if you're going to lay a bet that is like a very high leverage play. This is not investing, just speculation. Even positive expected value bets have high probability of losing. So there's a warning as usual. Best of luck, guys. See you next time.
Thanks.